Hi, I'm Tim Bradner. Thank you for joining us at Capitol News. And we're here today with Meera Kohler by Zoom, the CEO and president of Alaska Village Electric Cooperative. And I didn't realize it, but AVEC is 57, formed in 1967. It's 53 years old. Quite a long history to the organization. Anyway, welcome, Meera, and tell us a bit about AVEC.
Thanks, Tim. It's delightful to be here with you, as always. So yes, AVEC was incorporated in 1967, and first lights came on in the end of 1968 for the first three villages in our system. We now serve 58 communities. The largest of those is Bethel, which has more than 6,000 population. And we serve about a dozen villages where we have less than 100 meters in each of those systems. Obviously, we have to have a generation plant at each location because you can't get from one to the other. They're not connected by wire, they're not connected by road. So we actually operate 49 power plants. And obviously, we're mostly diesel powered because that really is the only known generation source that is reliable and predictable, and you can find the fuel and you can work on the engines, and it is what we is.
Meera, it seems that one of the advantages, or it would seem to me that one of the advantages of having a group ownership, a cooperative ownership of a large number of communities is you can get real economies of scale versus each village, each community having its own power plant. And this has turned out to be a real advantage for AVEC, I assume.
It really has, because no village can afford to have a single lineman of their very own or a single mechanic of their very own, because as a practical matter, they only need about 1/10 of an individual doing those jobs. So we actually have about a dozen linemen, and we have a dozen or more mechanics, and they travel full time. And so in effect, each village pays for about one technical man person in a year. So they're able to get all of the very types of services that are necessary to keep a system functioning at a fraction of the cost to own it themselves.
And so, Meera, what does the cost of power in rural communities compare with, like Anchorage, for example, or Fairbanks?
So in our communities, it varies widely. It's based upon where the location is. So for example, in Noatak up in Northwest Alaska, where we have to fly fuel in, the cost of electricity is close to 80 cents a kilowatt hour, because about 60 cents of that, or 55 cents, is pure fuel cost. For most other villages, it's closer to 50 cents a kilowatt hour. So we know that the cost of power in Anchorage is about 20 cents a kilowatt hour, a little bit more than that. So it's about 2.5 times the cost of electricity in Anchorage in most villages. And in many of them, it's much more.
But Juneau's even less expensive because of its hydropower.
Juneau is less expensive because it has Snettisham hydro. Incidentally, a lot of folks don't know that Snettisham was actually built by the federal government. It was one of 2 federal projects in the state. We had Snettisham and then Eklutna for here. But yes, their hydropower, most of it comes from Snettisham. They have 1 or 2 smaller projects as well. But I believe their retail cost of power is about 12 cents a kilowatt hour. So it's also significantly lower than the average in the lower 48.
And Meera, one of the big things that AVEC has done has been a group purchasing of fuel with all your villages. And that has resulted in a fairly significant savings of fuel costs out there. And that's still being done.
Well, we own the facilities in all the villages. So we own the power plant, we own the tank farm, and we purchase our own fuel. And we actually, the AVEC board decided about 10 years ago to go out and purchase our own tugs and barges, because there was no competition in fuel delivery in Western Alaska. And so we actually own our own tugs and barges, and they're chartered out to Vitus Marine, and they operate them. So we purchase all of our fuel in bulk, and we have favorable contracts in all of our villages. So yes, we do see a lot of advantages from purchasing 8.5 million gallons of fuel.
Okay. Well, that's kind of gives us a good segue into a topic that's of a lot of interest to people these days: power cost equalization. And it's a mechanism that is intended to equalize for residential consumers anyway, some of the high cost of power. maybe you could describe how the program works and the fact that it's for residential users, not commercial users or state facilities there.
Right. So PCE was established in late 1984. And it was during the time when we had a lot of money flowing into the Alaska coffers because of oil revenue. And so the state rightfully recognized that reliable, affordable energy underpins all economic development. So that became their goal, was to pursue economic energy for the state. And that resulted in hydro projects being built and an engineering study that determined that there really was no option for rural Alaska. And so the PCE program was what came out of that. When it started, it subsidized the first 750 kilowatt hours for all users. And over time, as the coffers got barer, they reduced how many facilities could get PCE and basically reduced the cost by about 50%.
And but we have an endowment fund that's been set up to help support that. And that's
The
about
endow-
$8. So
The endowment fund was established specifically because the legislature kept underfunding the PCE program, so it kept getting cut. And the endowment now provides all of the funding sources for PCE and even has a little bit left over in high earnings years where they're able to support municipal assistance as well. But yeah, it's been an absolutely life-saving and very vital program. But even with PCE, PCE only covers about 16% of the cost of producing electricity in rural Alaska. And that's a little known fact. The other 84% comes out of the pockets of those that live there.
would that be the commercial operators?
Commercial, schools, federal, state, and we're running out of time, I see.
Well, Meera, we'll have other opportunities to talk about the interesting other topics, including renewable energy. Meera Kohler, thank you very much. My understanding is you're about to retire, and by the time people will be viewing this, you'll be off to another career. And your replacement, Bill Stem, will be taking your place. So good luck to you, Meera, and we'll be talking with Bill more about AVEC.
Great, thank you. And you will be seeing me in the halls of Juneau because I'll continue to do some consulting work with AVEC.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us, Meera.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.